Okay, so officially, let's introduce you now because we do have some breaking news. This is Christopher Mele. He is my broker concierge. He is Director of Broker Relations with Access Health CT. Above him is Phil Boyle, who is maybe the Executive Director of Broker Relations. We will be heading over to the Staywell Center after this, but let Christopher introduce himself to the community. Most of you know him because he's called in as well as been in the studio. And then get the good news, which is newsworthy, by the way.
Thank you, Michael.
My pleasure. Great to see you.
Yeah, I'm really happy to be here on the show. I've been in the business for 7 years now. Spent my first 6 years at a large insurance carrier as a brokerage rep, Anthem Blue Cross and Blue Shield. I spent 6 years there. Worked with many brokers independently as their advisor, like Michael. And I recently, last year, came to work at the State Health Exchange, Access Health CT. And I am in charge of broker relations for the exchange. One of the big announcements many of you have heard through national news that the President Obama made an announcement that the federal government website, healthcare.gov, will be offering an extension on the March 31st deadline. The way they're providing this extension for the deadline is it's almost like a placeholder. On the federal government website, healthcare.gov, they're going to offer a placeholder. So if you check off a box and you make a profile and you can't finish it or you have a problem processing, you can finish it at a later date. The State of Connecticut Health Exchange, Access Health CT, will not be following the same guidelines. As a state-based exchange, we have our own charter, we have our own legislature. We will be sticking with the original deadline of midnight. March 31st, 2014 is the last day to enroll during our open enrollment. Anyone who wants to enroll after March 31st, 2014 will have to qualify under a special enrollment period and a qualifying event, which I'm going to go into in a little bit.
Please do. Okay. Please, if you already have coverage through your employer or through the exchange, call your best friend, call your sister. This is honestly, whenever the federal government speaks, people assume, I got another month. A gentleman at my local pub just said that to me. He's like, they extended that. I said, no, they didn't. I guarantee they won't. Remember when the federal government said you can keep your individual plan? Well, they didn't listen, or they just assumed, which was, you know what happens when you assume. Break that word down. It's just obvious that Connecticut is leading. Kevin Cunahan, our CEO of the state, put it out there to us brokers. It is newsworthy. Let them know there is no extension. So you have until midnight on the 31st. Please don't wait till the last day. The problem is the website keeps crashing on huge days. On the 15th, you should have seen it. We kept having to resubmit. Go now. Be proactive. Go to the Staywell Center. They're having an open enrollment seminar throughout the week. Go to my office. Speak to Jean, Lisa, Kristen. They all know how to run the quotes. Go, if you want to do it yourself and have a large, bank of knowledge on insurance, please don't do it if you really don't know what you're talking about. You could buy a plan that looks identical, silver, and all of a sudden have a deductible and no copays. So please make an educated decision and do this for yourselves. I'm going to let Chris talk about a very important aspect for you HR people out there. I'm lucky enough and blessed to insure large groups. No names for HIPAA reasons, but I insure large groups, and my team and I do a great job. Someone comes to me and says, can I get the exchange? Chris, let's talk about the 9.5%.
Okay.
I think it's essential everyone knows it, right?
Yeah. So what Michael's talking about, what he wants me to speak about, is the large employers. Part of the Affordable Care Act requires large employers to provide minimum essential coverage. If you're a large employer over 50 employees, you have to provide minimum essential coverage for your employees, and the employees cannot pay more than 9.5% of their household income as it's tested against the individual employee's rate only. So what that means is if you have an employee who makes an income and he has a family, if the household income that employee has under his taxable adjusted gross income for the calendar year is more than 9.5% of his total income, he will he will be eligible to go to the exchange.
Or she. There's a lot of hot ladies out there.
He or she would be able to go to the exchange and purchase a plan with a subsidy. Now, what's happening in the state right now, and what I'm going out to many insurance brokers throughout the state to talk about, is employers are getting letters from the exchange, Access Health CT, and the letters are basically saying, you have an employee, John Doe, no names.
Or Jane Doe.
Or Jane Doe, of your company who went to the exchange, purchased a plan with a subsidy, a tax credit, and just so you understand, and it details the federal law that says you have to provide coverage, minimum essential coverage for your employees. What this letter is used for is it's an opportunity for HR managers, chief financial officers, controllers, whoever's running the company, to go to their employee who purchased the plan through the exchange and explain the group benefits, the contribution requirements, and what they're providing as employer coverage. If you have an employer who's providing coverage at no more than 9.5% of the household income, and the person goes to the exchange because they didn't know better, or they watched our advertising and they went on the website and they enrolled, this is an opportunity for the employer to send their HR, their benefits person, to that person and advise them and explain to them how their employer coverage works. Give them a chance to go and purchase the employer coverage to be in compliance. Because the fact is, if an employee purchases a plan through the exchange and receives a tax credit, let's say they receive a total aggregate total of $10,000, $8,000 in tax credit, and the employer gets fined in a couple of years when the employer penalty comes into effect, the employer is going to send their notification back to the IRS, federal government, and say, I'm providing minimum essential coverage at no more than 9.5% of the household income for the employee, and the employee is going to be in a potential tax liability situation with regard to their individual subsidy they received over the exchange, because they weren't technically authorized to purchase the plan and receive the subsidy.
Well put. And if you don't understand that, simply call in. We can go over that topic again. That is very important for you people out there that are employed. Obviously, it's got to be a group of 50 or more.
Correct.
For the penalty. 50 or more. Go ahead.
And just one thing, speaking of that, recently in the news, I know there's been a lot going on with regard to national health care reform. The employer penalty of $2,000 per employee for not providing coverage, the way that works is if you're an employer over 50 and you don't provide coverage for your employees, they will fine you $2,000 per employee minus the first 30 employees. So it's almost like a deductible of 30
Correct.
people if you're a large employer. What they recently did was said, for groups 50 to 100, we're extending the penalty for another 2 years. So not just this year, but the next year, 50 to 100 employee groups, businesses, don't if they do not provide minimum essential coverage, they won't be penalized. 100 plus is in 1 year.
Right. 100 plus starts 15. Okay, so I'm going to have a commercial break now, and then I'm going to have a guest, Dr. Jeffrey Bisson, on, and we're going to talk about Look Ma Dental Care. What a great article in the Rep Am on Friday, March 7th. Talk to you in a minute.